So as we all know that DPDPA, which is the Digital Personal Data Protection Act of India, was officially enacted in August 2023. And this legislation represents a significant step towards strengthening the data protection and privacy measures in the country, aligning with the global standards for personal data protection. So this act came into an effect with regards to the growing concerns about digital privacy and to regulate the handling of critical personal data with transparency and accountability. So since the financial sector, which handles highly sensitive personal data, this DPDPA is particularly crucial, and it mandates organizations to implement appropriate security measures to protect personal data and reduce risk of data breaches. So without taking much of our time, I would just dive into the panel discussion, welcoming all my esteemed panelists, Mr. Balaji TK, who is the AVP Flexi Loan, Mr. Senthil Kumar Iyyappan, who is the CISO at Ocrolus, Mr. Srinivasan Balraj, who is the Head of Information Security, Audit and Compliance at Muthoot FinCorp Limited, and Mr. Vamsi Krishna, who is the founder and CEO of QRC Assurance and Solutions. So welcome the esteemed panelists. So my first question goes to you all, that if you would like to spend 2 minutes each and describe about your roles and responsibilities and what do you do in the privacy space in your day-to-day responsibilities. So maybe I can ask Mr. Balaji to please go first.
Thank you, Mohinee. Happy morning, everyone. Thank you, CXO Junction, and thank you, QRC, for putting this wonderful panel discussion where I'm eager to learn a lot from every panelist also. Thank you for this. Okay. I'm Balaji. I do represent Flexi Loan. What we do is we are one of the large upcoming MSME loan providers. Okay, so what we do is predominantly we do a business loan, mostly from a supply chain standpoint we do it. But after it, recently what we are doing is we have built a marketplace, which is a loan aggregation platform. On one end, we connect with all the MSME, SME and all. We also connect with various partners. On the other end, we do have all the digital lenders. So we stitch together with our platform where I collect all the information, pass it everything through API and then get the decisions running. So we help almost most of the SMEs in this southern part of India. So that's what we're doing it right now. Okay. From a privacy standpoints and security standpoint measures and all, like we'll in the upcoming Q&A, we'll take it up. Yeah, further. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Balaji. Moving on to Mr. Srinivasan.
Yeah, hi everyone. Good morning and thanks for the opportunity again to all the participants and the guests here. So I represent Muthoot FinCorp. I head the Information Security Audit and Compliance Division here. And most of you might have known about the organization, right? It's an 130 years plus old organization, was predominantly into gold loan business. But in the last 3 to 4 years, we expanded our business into other areas as well, into mortgage loans, secured loans, unsecured loans, digital applications, co-lending, etc. But this increases our security posture and the need for compliance to various RBI compliance rules as well, right? Having said that, before I tell about what I do for the organization, it's all important about why we do this. Why we do this is because of various 6 factors which will give you the business benefits. As an organization, we recognize that the connection between the privacy and the investment and the benefits are paramount, right? There are 6 key principles to it, including how do you reduce sales delays, mitigating loss from the data breaches, how you enable innovation across the organization, how do you achieve operational efficiency, and furthermore, the paramount importance is how do you build your customer trust. And when you look at all these 6 pillars, building customer trust plays a pivotal role for our organization. That is where we focus that whatever we do, we put the customer at first and customer at the last. Everything what we do starts with customer and ends with customer. So having said this, what I do on a regular basis is I analyze the data practices first, right? I identify how the data is collected, where is it stored, and how do we process it on a day-to-day basis, and assess the compliance gap, because since the law is also pretty much new, we understand what are the current practices which we have to perform and do a gap assessment accordingly and proceed further. Third important thing is how do you develop your compliance strategies for organization? What procedures and protocols you have to frame in order to run a successful show? And at the end, people are your important stakeholders, right? How do you keep them aware about the privacy requirements, and then give proper training to them. These are the key activities which I'm involved in from a third line of defense standpoint and a company standpoint.
Sure. Thank you so much for these insights. So moving on to Mr. Senthil.
Hi, everyone. Thanks. So I am the CISO for Ocrolus. It's a fintech SaaS AI platform. I think I've clubbed all the key important words in 3 lines. So fintech, SaaS, and AI. So I think as Srinivasan and Balaji said, as a CISO, while security is one of my core focus, privacy is an equal and important focus for me because it involves data protection, right from reducing sales friction and making sure we get the market right. The major focus involves around development and enforcement of data protection and privacy policies. We are a global company catering not only to India, but also across the globe. So yeah, along with DPDPA, we have like all the other privacy compliances also to manage, conducting privacy impact assessments, making sure we have the required data security controls. And more specifically on the privacy space is how do we handle all those user rights management, which are mandated by all these laws and regulations. Since we are also adding an AI layer to it, we have an additional responsibility as a CISO to make sure we have responsible AI practices that are followed. We are processing financial information here, and we make sure we use it in the right way, and it is needed for the business. So these are some of my day-to-day activities or challenges that I face.
Sure. Thank you, Senthil, for sharing this perspective. So coming to Mr. Vamsi, if you would like to share some insights on this.
Yeah, actually, I'm representing QRC. As we know, most of the people, the QRC is into the privacy and the security, services. Majorly, we are providing services like enabling organizations to meet these specific regulations in terms of the privacy. This is what actually we are focusing. Apart from that, QRC is having a different service portfolio. But when it comes to the privacy domain, we are helping organizations to achieve that privacy principles by setting up the proper systems in the organization, whether it can be the impact assessments, whether it can be the proper training, or it can be the data analysis. Okay, so the setting the process is very, very important. Apart from that, since we are already into the domain of the security, definitely the data protection is also another part. There are 2 parts here. One is the data as per the principles of the privacy, analyze that. And then second one is how to protect the data. So both cases, we are helping organization, advising them how to implement things, That's all from my side. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much to you all. So coming back to Mr. Balaji, I would like to know from you, since you are into the loan sector. So given the large number of customers in the loan sector, what are the challenges does an organization face in handling and securing customer data under DPDPA?
So it's a quite interesting one. So if you see the DPDPA Act and how it is impacting the financial sector, like we need to go to the Western world and see, okay, first in the Western world, okay, they got a lot of data. After being a developed country, they start putting this data policies, privacy policies into the framework. But when you come back to India, still we are a developing country, still we are not gone to the developed state, but we are still putting all these laws and act into this place. So what does it mean is like India as a country want to safeguard its citizen, want to safeguard the data protection, everything. Okay, I think we are in the right direction right now in that. Okay, that's one part I would like to emphasize on it. But why it is so important for a financial standpoint? DP itself is digital and personal data. Okay, what do you mean by digital is whatever been automated. So in finance sector, I don't see anybody right now doing anything manually. Okay, so that means every single financial sector is completely digital. So they need to apply, this law is applicable to them. That's point number 1. Point number 2 is every single financial institution collect huge amount of personal data, personal identifiable data, be it a name, be it his gender, be it his date of birth, be it address, and much more. If they are employed, we collect where they're working, We also collect the bank statement. If he's doing a business, we collect his business information. We collect complete banking habit. So huge personal data is being collected by every single financial institution. So now you see the importance of this law. Okay, why it is impacting a lot in the financial domain, because our entire credit decisioning after this open credit enable came, the entire credit decisioning methodology itself getting changed. All the decisions happen based on a lot of personal identifiable data, the credit decisions. So it has a direct impact on every single financial institution who process this amount of data. Okay, so that is why it is extremely very important. How do you safeguard this data, and what kind of data you are collecting it? Okay, so there is a clause saying like consent. For example, I need to request a consent saying this, for this information only I need to collect all your data. So okay, so that should be very clearly articulated and given to the customers. Okay, and whatever concern for that purpose we obtain this data, it shouldn't be used for anything else. Okay, so this is very important. So like that, there are various clauses into it. So we need to take some time, understand that clause, understand the act, and then try to change our entire mechanism. How do you collect the data and how do you store the data? So this is one of the I wouldn't say it's challenge. I think we need to mature into it, because normally this compliance and everything, it's an evolving process. Okay, solutions are available. We need to get into that. Okay, I wouldn't say it's a challenge. We need to get evolved with that. Okay, but there are good organization who comes, audits and helps us, and there most of the people have started this practicing, because we've done like almost 1.5 years this is going on. So most of the people have get to that. Okay, I wouldn't say as a challenge. We need to start implementing it. That's what I would say. Yeah.
Sure, fair enough. So coming to Mr. Srinivasan, do you also face similar challenges in your organization? And if you can just share one real-time example of a challenge which you have encountered, and how did you address it?
Sure, Mohinee. And in line with what Balaji has mentioned, right, the decision making has become more and more automated nowadays. A large amount of pool of data, the correlation then makes decision making. When you issue a loan to a customer, decision making happens as a maker perspective from these AI and automated tools, and human gives a human touch to it from a checker standpoint, right? That's a very critical point in terms of how we use digital data here. But let's say, right, there are three things to consider. One is how the data is being used and whether your data is being sold for marketing purposes or not. These are the two things from a customer standpoint which will be in their mind. And from the company standpoint, I would think about how do I comply with the privacy laws and how do I avoid data breaches. These are my two important challenges. So when we have to expand a business from a gold loan business to other entities, other line of businesses, the challenge was that did we give a proper consent to the customer that we are also using the data for other products as well, right? So then we have to relook at the terms and conditions, relook at the data, and then revamp the terms and conditions and privacy consent to ensure that we are agreeing with the customer, letting them know in advance that they're going to use the data in the long run for their other products marketing as well. This is one important factor. But from a board standpoint, right? From the board of directors standpoint, management standpoint, we have to ensure that how do you translate your privacy objectives into organizational activities, which is very difficult nowadays because board needs to understand in a different way altogether. And one way for us to implement this is to understand the use of the privacy metrics. What privacy metrics which you can define as a control activity, which can be shown to the board on a periodical basis. Because once you give these reports to your management, once you get a confidence about how these metrics are operational, then they're pretty much happy about it, right? But what are your key metrics? Which could be your customer trust metrics, your audit results, your data breaches, and data subject requests. And at last but not the least, your incident response. If these metrics can be in your which you're going to share with your board, this will give the confidence to the board that yes, my customers and my organization is completely in a safe zone now. So these are the two key challenges, right? One from marketing standpoint, another one from a management standpoint.
Sure, fair enough. So coming to Mr. Senthil, since you are into AI-driven document automation, so when processing financial documents and while using AI, what specific challenges do you face in ensuring the data privacy and compliance with DPDPA?
AI always is scary and adds factor. So I think I'll also align with what Balaji and Srinivasan said, which are very primary and important. So one, understanding the way how we as a country are looking at this and how industries and organizations are looking at it at the level of readiness. And to touch upon Srini's point, yes, so you have to bring everyone on the same page when it comes to implementation, make the customer trust and buy our product, and also make sure we balance the business and make sure the board is understanding of why we are doing and what we are doing. So these are very much important, and that's all. These are challenges, right? I cannot tell the same requirement or story to my board and to my CTO and to my head of sales, right? They all have different requirements. So managing the balance between all three itself is a primary challenge, right? You have to see how we can align to these regulations, irrespective of the size of the company. Even if it's a small startup or a big enterprise, this is there. Now, apart from the challenges that already said by the other panelists, which is data classification, consent management, and data minimization, when it comes to all these are already existing challenges. So to us, there is one more layer on top of it, which is bringing in AI. We are processing highly sensitive personal and financial information in the form of documents, and it is not, as Balaji said, it's automated and it has AI involved in it. While we are not making financial decisions, but there are certain analytics that are involved. So the major challenge is making our customers and end users understand how the AI works. Explainability of the AI process end-to-end, which is involved in our product. We call it as AI transparency and explainability. Hey, what AI does, what data is sent to AI, what data you are sharing, and how it is processed. Is it shared with anyone else, or it is you have your own models, or it's private? Is our decisions being made transparently? How much amount of data that you have fed into these AI models for training? Are you using our data? Are you generating test data? What is the quality of those test data? What is the bias factor that you are considering? Can it take right decisions? Or if I give only one specific set of data, will my AI call out, hey, I don't have enough data, or it will be biased? So these are some of the things that we will have. And there is always challenges with engineers wanting to use all the data, but we have to act in between. Hey, you cannot use all these data because we have got this consent only for this purpose. So making sure we implement all these practices across all layers is a challenge.
Sure, fair enough. I think like the intersection of AI and data privacy is a complex area. And thank you for sharing these insights. So this is incredibly informative by all the panelists. So coming to Mr. Vamsi, since you are one of the QSs in India and you keep auditing various financial sector firms, so what common challenges have you encountered and observed within your clients? And do you also align with the challenges just described by the other panelists?
Okay. So I don't, okay, let me explain. You know, most of my experience with the organizations is first major challenge is data. I mean, where is the data and what kind of a data? Because, you know, if it is a smaller organizations, it is little easier for them to understand because they have a limited line of services. Okay, they have at least some kind of visibility, or they can restrict the what data, because, you know, one of the data principle DPA talks about the purpose and the lawfulness. These are the two things, right? So when it comes to the purpose, smaller organization, it will be very easy for them to understand what is the purpose I am collecting this data. First of all, after that, the consent management will come. Okay, purpose. Before that purpose, they should identify which data is actually they're taking, because if it is a very difficult challenge for the larger organization, because so many times, you know, different CISOs or CTOs, they're asking me, hey, Vamsi, do you have any solution where I will just deploy it and it will fetch out what kind of, you know, personal data I'm collecting? Because they have not have the kind of visibility in terms of what data is coming inside to their organization. Okay, identification of the data is become a very challenge for them. Okay, that is the first challenge I can see. Second one is definitely second. You see, everybody is talking about the consent management. Agree, but if you look at the DPDP, the consent management has to be, there are certain requirements is provided. The consent, not forcibly, you cannot take the consent. Okay, it's a free will, you cannot take the consent. So there are certain things are there. Very important while you are actually you see, we are sitting in the metros. But if you go to the rural market, like financial institution, they're having a services at a very local, rural areas, urban, metros, everything. How you will inform the why this particular data being collected to the person who is uneducated, but he is having the Aadhaar card, he is having the bank account, he is taking the loans, farmers taking the loans. So this is the biggest challenge. The next one is the consentment. So first thing, in my point, there are two things. One is the data identification and identify the purpose of the data lawfulness. The third one is the consent management. These are the three things majorly I come across from the organizations. Yes.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Thank you so much, Mr. Vamsi, for these insights. So this definitely help us, better prepare and develop more effective data privacy strategies. So I do have a follow-up question for you that since we're discussing about the challenges, what are the frameworks do you recommend for implementing DPDP when conducting audit or when you advise any clients?
So you see, actually, when you are talking about the DPDP or any other guidelines, these are actually requirements. These are the requirements. So the government or any the regulatory body asking to meet these requirements. Now for the organization, how to meet that? It's a kind of a destination, right? I have to reach out that place. For that, I need to have a proper systematic approach. So if you ask me, since I'm the ISO guy, my vote goes to ISO 27701, that is the privacy information management standard, which actually gives the clarity in terms of how you will reach out. Okay, you see, once you understand step-by-step approach, what systems I am supposed to run it in my organization, so that it's not about only the DPDP, even any other privacy regulations also, you can meet their expectations. So my vote goes to ISO 27701. I'm recommending personally to any company when they ask me this question, how to meet this, regulations.
Okay. Thank you so much for this. So coming back to Mr. Srinivasan, based on your expertise, what are the best practices that a financial organization should implement or follow to ensure they are compliant with the DPDPA?
Yeah, so I can understand where you come from, right? Because there's a lot of overlap and leverage between GDPR and DPDPA. Any company who is 100% GDPR can be 70% leverage on DPDPA. So that's a quick wins also, positive thing to it. But the best practice standpoint, right? There are 4 key pillars which you have to focus on. One is the data governance, which is how do you map your data inventory? How do you maintain the data inventory on a long basis and minimize the amount of data which you collect from your customers, right? Don't get everything and anything. Right to ask is also an important key factor. So minimize the data what you ask and then classify your data. As Balaji mentioned earlier, not everything is PII. Combination of data, name, address, phone number, your passport number, Aadhaar, PAN can be a consequential PII for organization, but just a name cannot be a PII too. So that is very important. And second factor is lawful consent and lawful basis, which Vamsi has already highlighted multiple times. So I would not touch upon that very closely. And third important factor is transparency and individual rights, right? When your privacy policy and notes, when we have any application download from internet or on your phone, we easily click and say, I agree or okay. But do we read through it completely? How many of us do it? Not many, right? But when you get into an issue, that's when this transparency of policy and rights and notice has a significant importance. And as a consumer, I would expect to have a right to access and correct my data whenever I need for. So as a company, I should enable my forum for my customers to ensure that they have an opportunity to right to access the data and correct the data if it is found to be wrong in our environment. And last but not the least, a right to erase, a right to delete the data, right? These factors has to be brought into picture from privacy and a legal standpoint as well. And technology should support from all these aspects. When I say about technology, your security and accountability also plays a major role. What are the major security measures a company has to implement in the long run, right? So how do you ensure unauthorized access is being stopped? How do you ensure data disclosure is being addressed? How do you ensure data alteration destruction is being handled? And second thing is about data breach management. How do you comply with those timelines, the escalation tree mechanism, and report your data breaches to the various stakeholders? And whether your company has a DPO or not nowadays, right? How many companies today have a DPO? Whether CISO acts as a DPO, CTO acts as a DPO, or do we have a DPO in place in the company or not? That's still a lingering question, because even though we have the act published, we don't have the guidelines yet from the government. So we have to figure out a way how we can best handle this. For any company, currently a CISO might also act as a DPO, because they need to build and scale their team and look at the practices. And last important point I want to touch about is about the vendor management. It's not just about your company data, it's also about where your data is given to your third parties and fourth parties and the nth party. Right? When you assess your third party, ensure you have a proper privacy control mechanism in place to test your privacy control of your third parties. If you find any data breaches, a third party should have two things. Either they should comply to the government compliance, that is RBI or any regulatory compliances, or if your client compliance is more than regulatory compliance, whichever is higher, they have to comply for. So your vendor management practices from privacy standpoint also plays a pivotal role. Last but not the least, we always talk about security by design, but world is now also changing into a phase security and privacy by design. So these are the practices which you have to keep in your mind. Have a common theme as security and privacy by design, which will help you to nurture your process, because we don't see it as a challenge, just as Balaji mentioned earlier. You should have some thoughtful governance practices and thoughtful processes built up to ensure we are always compatible with the privacy laws. So that's from my side.
Fair enough. I think these best practices are the key to maintaining a high standards of data privacy and security. And definitely your advice will certainly help the organizations in their compliance journey. So since we discussed about the challenges, the best practices, the framework, I would just like to ask Mr. Vamsi, privacy regulations are evolving globally with laws like GDPR, China's privacy law, California's privacy law. So if a company is already a GDPR compliant, what new aspects introduced by DPDPA should they be aware of?
Okay, good question. Because since the GDPR came a couple of years back, a lot of people are asking me the similar kind of a question. I'm already GDPR compliant. I mean, I can comply with. Can I comply with the GPDP? You see, I would like to say I'm not. I agree with disagree. The meaning is that yes, because since you are already GDPR compliant means you might be having certain processes in place in your organization in terms of maybe the consent management or the rights management, okay, or at least the identification of the data, which I previously mentioned. These are certain challenges. But when it comes to the DPDP, it is a more the applicability of the DPDP, or for example, the child consent, the parent consent has to be taken in this case. You see, in other countries, it is little easy. Like, for example, if you go to any Western countries, the consent can be 1 or 2 languages. But in India, it is in 23, 25 languages, officially published. Right. So there are different challenges here. And second thing, the kind of the services the organization providing to the general users. So this is a different line of business services are there, right? So coming to the point, GDPR definitely it can help the organizations to maintain certain level of compliance, but it's not 100%. I cannot bifurcate like 50 or something like this, but DPDP is having their own set of things, interest. Like, for example, DPDP talks about the consent management, the rights management. In the rights management, for example, right to the principals. And here there is a data protection board, obligation of the breaches. Okay, here the consent manager is not a concept from the GDPR. Okay, here the consent manager is supposed to be appointed. Editor has to be appointed. You see, editor has to be appointed. If it is a significant data fiduciaries, there are two categories: data fiduciary and the significant data fiduciary. Okay, who will be the significant data fiduciary, or how the cross-border transactions happens? All these things we have to wait for some time, because the rules yet to come to the this way from the government. But the point is that there are a lot of new things are also introduced to our DPDP. So I would say GDPR definitely helps the organizations in the initial period, but going forward, whether it is a data audits is mandatory in the DPDP. Data protection officer, officer is mandatory for the significant data fiduciaries. Consent management for the different languages, different platforms, it's a challenge. Okay, and also the right to the principals. I mean, the users they are giving. For example, here there are additional rights also given. Not only that, for example, I can nominate I can nominate someone for my data. These are certain new things came into the DPD. Okay, so definitely these are the things we need to understand. So I mean, I firmly believe that the people supposed to, the organization supposed to prepare themselves. Definitely GDPR, having GDPR good, but not because you know why I'm touching on this point. Most of the people think I'm already GDPR compliant, so by default I will be complying with the DPDP. I don't need to do anything. That is wrong. That's what I want to highlight here. Okay.
Fair enough. I think then the aspects of DPDPA in comparison to other global privacy laws is crucial for organizations to operate internationally as well. So I think we already have a lot of questions in the chat, which people are waiting for us to answer. But I would just like to have a final thoughts, final key takeaway. Maybe Mr. Balaji, if you would like to answer us, that any key takeaways which we should keep in mind.
See, key takeaway standpoint is that there are a lot of new opportunities going to get created because of the DPDA, like data protection officer, concern manager. So there are various new opportunities are going to get created. That's one good thing I would see in this. Okay. But second thing is also you should have you should tie up with some kind of people who can able to debug the law and tell what is going to happen, because from a business side it will be very difficult to debug sometimes, because there's also a clause called legitimate usage. If it's a legitimate usage means I shouldn't even need a consent to get the data, for example for a job requirement or to give a subsidiary or to give for a national security or even for a pandemic during. So that's a legitimate clause. So there are a lot of various clauses, like Vamsi was also talking about data fiduciary. So there are various clauses are there. My suggestion is since data is getting evolved, go see if some kind of people can come and help it. But from an organization standpoint, I request everyone to sit across, first do a data discoverability, okay? Because from a data protection perspective, ensure you are collecting the right data and don't do a over collection of the data, and wherever possible do the anonymity. Like if you can able to do anonymity of data, that's far better. See, this will also give a lot of user experience. For example, you go collect few datas. For example, you know his credit score is not good. Okay, by doing the KYC, what's the point in going and collecting further the bank statement with him? You're not giving a good customer experience, no. So my suggestion is sit and see the data discoverability, your application flow, everything. That will give a lot of inputs. Don't do any over collection of data. Try to restrict the data collection so that you are bringing a lot of user experience standpoint also, and it's also going to help you in the data protection perspective. So that is my takeaway from this year.
Certainly. Thank you so much. So I would just like Mr. Srinivasan as well to share his views and any key takeaways which we should focus on.
Yeah, sure. Overall, the theme is about, right, focus on privacy by design in the long run. See, as many organizations have required security to protect the data assets, to help manage the risk, to build customer confidence and the loyalty. But in today's very complex business environment, with novel technology innovations and customer expectations have pretty much evolved to privacy emerging as another critical element. So privacy is a critical element of customer trust. As customers set their standards of trust, we should continuously listen, learn, and evolve to meet those standards and keep prioritizing key things, right? Trustworthiness of your customer, of your organization, giving more transparency, giving more accountability, and having a holistic approach. Privacy with technology can be a game changer, can be a savior, but end of the day, the experience what you give to your customer has a pivotal role. So building customer trust and loyalty and having privacy by design are the two important takeaways for me from this session.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Certainly. So Mr. Senthil, if you would like to share some key takeaways.
Yeah, I think all the panelists have covered in a way which is respective for their domain. So I'll try and put a simple summary. So see, overall, this DPDPA, along with all the regulations across the world, these are meant to bring some discipline and streamlining in the way how institutions should manage and protect data more personally, like more specifically personal data and financial data. So I think overall that's the theme. every business needs to adopt what is required for them and handle those information, right from how Balaji mentioned about consent and data minimization, anonymization, security and privacy by design. So overall, my takeaway is, yes, this is very much important. And yes, there is no doubt about it. The journey to compliance will have its own unique challenges and misinterpretations, as Vamsi said. Hey, I have GDPR, so I don't have to worry about it. No, everything is unique. While it complements each other, but yeah, everything is distinct here. So there are challenges, and also at the same time, I think it also gives an opportunity to bring in data governance, foster customer trust, and end of the day, yeah, it is also giving room for innovation as well. So we have to embrace these changes and look what is needed for business and the company's vision and goals, and work accordingly. Yes, you have to meet all regulatory, legal, compliance, data security, but end of the day, yeah, every company is working to give what the customer wants, right? So revenue is also making a key role. So yeah, my takeaways are all these things are important. It has its unique challenges, but it also gives room for innovation, and it's worth solving for.
Sure. Thank you so much for sharing such, valuable perspective. So I will come to you, Mr. Vamsi, after we take some Q&A from the live audience. I think there are some thoughts, some questions have been put. So there's a question by Mr. Saurav Girdhar that DPDPA is applicable to all companies. Is there any specific guidelines from RBI for NFBCs, fintechs? Of course, we need to prevent customer data, etc. But any low-hanging fruits we can target to stay safe.
So
Yes.
as such, the DPDP Act, let us put up this very clearly. DPDP Act means it is applicable to almost all the organizations. Only the difference is that data fiduciary, there are certain guidelines and significant data fiduciary. These are the two major categories. Any company which is handling the personal digital data has to come under this particular act. Okay, but however, for particular startup companies or the certain different type of organizations, the government or the data protection board or the government supposed to come out with the industry specific rules. Okay, so that is what everybody is awaiting. But otherwise, by default, the act will be applicable. Most of the organization who deal with this such kind of a data. Okay, coming to the RBI or NBFC or any such kind of a guidelines are given. You see, generally, if you look at very transparent, very clearly, it is not only DPDP, even IT Act is there already. It talks about the, data protection of the privacy. Okay, and most of these regulatory other standards and everything also coming out with the data protection, data privacy. So, but very simple thing. Act is applicable to most all the organization who deals with this, whether they are within the India or outside of the India, that is different. The rules has to come, okay. And coming to the normal basic privacy things, already the IT Act is also talking about that. Now talking about the how to protect the privacy of the individuals. Okay, so that's my answer for that.
Sure, I think. Saurav, if you have any follow-up questions, please put it on the chat. And I think you have well answered his question. So coming to the next question by Mr. Ojha. Financial institutions were and are still collecting huge amount of personal data. My question is related to this. Will they still be collecting the same data? If they would still be collecting the same amount of data, how are they planning to safeguard the data? IMO, safeguarding the data is the main challenge.
So basically, is it a question? Okay, so my understanding is the organization, the institutions are collecting lot of data for various purposes and safeguarding the data. So what is the question? I didn't get that.
I think if we can just mention it again in the chat. And
I believe I think they're asking still, do you want to collect so much of data still when this act is there?
Okay.
I think it should be read
So
like that. Okay, yeah.
Okay, if that is the question, whether they're required to collect, that is where the DPDP coming. You see, someone asked me sometime, there is a slogan, now data is the oil. Absolutely right, data is the oil, but even small matchbox, it will burn. So the point is that we are collecting a lot of data. That is where the data minimization is one of the principle. Okay, data collection restrictions and data minimization, and deleting the data after the purpose is completed. So these are the basic principles and the requirements is given in the DPDP. That is how actually it will definitely, it is not like previously, okay, we can collect as much as data. There is not necessary, like if you go into a medical shop or anything, they are asking so much data, like your mobile number, your email ID, and your address. Even you are purchasing a small medicine, like the Dolo, right? So this is not necessarily so. Because of this, when the act, already act is there, now the definitely organization go for that. Then the data minimization is one of the key principle the organization supposed to follow. Otherwise, you see, so far no one is asking question why you are collecting this data, but tomorrow the data auditors will come, data protection board will come, and very important as well, the penalty is there. So far there is no such kind of a thing. Now, as per the DPDP, each breach will cost the organization approximately 250 crores. So this is very huge. So now the organization is supposed to take care of such kind of a things also. So far there is no act. So we are very much freely connected. But now the act is there. If it start implementing, then definitely these things will come down.
Sure. Thank you so much, sir. So the next question is, if there is no DPO, can CISO own data privacy and implement policies?
This question for me? Okay, you see, I think Srinivasan already just I didn't mention that who will be the data protection officer, whether it's the CISO or CTO or you see, as far as there is no very clear cut significant data fiduciary is supposed to appoint a data protection officer. That is clearly mentioned in the act. Now, who will be these data protection officers? There is no specific guidelines, because as far as if you ask me, my personally, whoever taking the responsibility of just like a CISO, most of the companies CISO, sometime there's a dual responsibilities. This is still possible, because ultimately after the data again it is the name itself, data protection officer. So basically again the security will come into the picture. So it can be the dual responsibilities, or but the point is that there is nowhere it is mentioned CISO cannot be the DPO. That's very clear. Okay, CISO cannot be the DPO. There is nothing mentioned like that. There is no kind of a conflict also, because it is a complement for each other. The security and the information security and the privacy is a complement each other. Okay, so I didn't see any conflict or anything like this.
Sure.
I think I can also add to it. So see, it also depends on the business and the size of the company. If the companies cannot afford, there is always a place where the CISO can take up those implementation responsibilities. The only thing that we need to make sure is have clear roles and responsibilities defined, maybe have dual reportings so that the security responsibilities and the privacy responsibilities are monitored appropriately. And as long as you don't have, you establish and prove there is no conflict of interest between these two roles, I think we are fine. And as Vamsi said, yeah, we cannot always go with exactly what the law says. Sometimes as long as we are meeting the business requirements and we have independent audits and reviews and all these evidences, they are still supporting documents to prove that we have this in place. But yeah, simple answer, yes, you can, but make sure you carefully consider and avoid potential conflict of interests.
Adding to the small companies nowadays, they look as a vCISO service. You have also a vDPO service, which might come in the picture in the long run, right? You can look into those aspects too. We can't afford a permanent DPO, then why can't you go for vDPO, virtual DPO?
Yeah, but now the challenge is in one of this act also mentioning if there is any breach, the DPO is responsible. I mean, there is legally responsible. So
yes.
so now
if regulation says that you need to have a permanent DPO, then we can't won't have any other options.
The important one role where DPO need to do is, which everyone keep forgetting, is you should do a lot of advocacy within the organization, the importance of data. So you should warn that, okay, apart from owning the data, security, everything, you should do a lot of advocacy. You should be evangelist in this. Okay, so that is one important role where you need to go sensitize the team. You are collecting so much of data, like see, evaluate, preserve. So there are many things, but you should be more of evangelist things in this. Yeah.
Fair enough. So one last question which I can take for now is how to resolve conflicts between right to delete and data retention as per legal, statutory, and regulatory requirement. And
Okay.
there is one more question related to that, which was any guidelines published around employees' data deletion and retention?
So you see, as far as the DPDP, I mean, in a very high level, it is mentioned this data what you are collecting, if it's the employment purposes, it is exempted. Like, because it's not like, it's a normal end user, the data principle, because it's a purpose. There is a purpose of the employability, right? So, so that is already they mentioned there, employability, and also some cases wherein, some emergency situation or a very critical situation also there is no need to take the consent, this is already given, but very high level. But these will be more getting clarity when we get a detailed rules once it is published. Okay, now before that one question is like data deletion to data retention. You see, data retention has to be in place because that is something which is driven by the regulatory or statutory regulatory requirements. Okay. So that is the reason now if you choose the DPDP, it is not talking about the delete. For example, in the bill, it was talking about the data deletion, but here it is talking about the data eraser. So there is a little difference between the deletion and the eraser. So this is the might be according to my personal view. This is the reason because delete is total entirely deleted, and eraser might be there are chances of keeping some archives or somewhere for this regulatory regulatory expectation point of. Okay, so now there is no delete; it's only erase only.
Okay, fair enough. So just to address, maximum questions from the audience, I would like to take one more that any idea if DPO need to be a lawyer or an engineer by qualification, and what is better? Also, if virtual.
Master of all.
I just responded. See,
Okay.
both lawyers and engineers have their own skill. One can handle legal side of things, and if we are building solutions, we definitely need an engineer who can build all those privacy requirements into the product if we have to. If the product needs to be building the privacy by design, but how can I make an engineer understand legalities? So yeah, both are important as long as both roles are willing to learn each other. I think it's totally fine. So end of the day, lawyers will have to understand how it is being technical, how technically this is being built, and engineers also should understand the legal perspective. So there should always be a balance. Yes, they might be like opposite poles, but they have to somehow come together and attract each other. So
Sure. As per
CISO or auditor is always jack of all trades, but master of none, right?
That's what I'm trying to say.
See, the DPO, if you see who can get appointed as a DPO. So only 3 roles DPO need to see it. Whomsoever fit to this can be appointed. One is you need to oversee the data protection and data protection strategy and implementation. That's it. Okay. If anyone is very, very strong in data protection strategy and implementation, he can be a DPO. That's it.
Yes. One more thing, when it comes to the lawyer or engineering point, just I have a different, I mean, I'm aligned with that, but still, you see, lawyers and everything, that's like, when it comes to the some legality, I mean, how to define that, consent, okay, or the how to protect the rights. Some cases, definitely the lawyer's point of view is very, very important, because even we also, when we are helping some organization, we always ask, you see, we are the security and the process people. No, but legality, you have to appoint, the organization supposed to appoint their own lawyer to see whatever the things what we are mentioning, whether it is legally okay or not okay, right? But at the same time, what is my point is that lawyers is having their own point of view. The solution architects are the engineers which are talking. Very important. The data protection officer need to see entire cycle, start from the beginning. Data, any new business line they're starting, whether what data to be collected, this is the business owner only can decide. Okay, so it cannot be decided by lawyers or so business process owners also must be involved in this entire process. This is what I can recommend. Okay, it's a teamwork. It's one person cannot be do everything, but it's teamwork. Maybe organization might be required to appoint. Okay, whether it is mentioned in that, whether it is mentioned in the act or not. But I'm sure definitely they have to have the steering committee, privacy steering committee, or something where the different people come together and put their points. Okay, but ultimately, yes, one person in the act, it is very clearly mentioned the DPO. So it is I mean, this is a position somebody has to take that. Okay, and he will oversee all the things in the organization, start from the data to rights management, consent management, trainings, user awareness. So a lot of things on the DPO head. I'm sure about it.
Certainly. Thank you. So the next question is, in an Indian financial institution like a bank, what all CISO functions or roles reporting to CISO we have? Also, what all roles and functions will be reporting to DPO for the same organization? Example, investigation and reporting team, PIA reviewer, DSAR team, assurance team, training or comms team, data governance or mapping.
Who
Team
can take this?
Yeah. So considering
So-
the above, do we still believe that CISO can own the DPO responsibility?
Already, I think this is already we discussed, whether CISO can take the DPO role and or not. That is already we discussed, it is up to the organization how, if it is a smaller organization, they can't afford two people or one person only supposed to take both the things. But you see, what we need to understand is basically the person, whoever taking this position, they should aware of what is entire, the life cycle of the privacy. Okay, that is very, very important. Okay, who anybody can take it. There is no specific, he should have this kind of a qualification. There is no such kind of a thing as far as I know. Okay, so that's point number one. Second thing, I mean, the question which you have asked is the reporting. You see, reporting is also, it is not mentioned in the act. It's absolutely with the organization only, organization level, like whether, who is supposed to reporting to whom. This now, Act is not talking about anything like this. It's up to the organization to implement the protocols and the benefit of the organization. But yes, data protection officer is liable for certain actions. Like if there is any breach or anything happened, and he is responsible to notify the right, data protection board, or and represent the organization in terms of any breach happened. He has to put up his own points and everything. That kind of a things is already there in the act. But internal organization structure, that it's up to the organization only. I think anybody can add.
I can add one point.
Yeah.
Okay, CISOs can be DPO, that's fine. But one major difference I would see from a CISO and then like data protection officer, CISO is more of from, you look from internal standpoint, from outside to internal. That means he sees his internal digital assets, everything, and you need to safeguard everything. Whatever the digital assets within the organization, you need to safeguard. That means more from outward to inward. But whereas a DPO, which is a digital protection, is from inward outward. That means he's more from a customer data point. Okay, you need to from internal into view the customer data point and see how it is being safeguarding. So this is from outward to inward. He is from inward to outward. So that's what the major difference I would see it here.
Fair enough. So I think people love this session today, and lots of praises as well along with the questions. So with this, since we have some time barriers, so I think I would just like to end it here. And thank you for all the panelists for this insightful contribution in today's discussion. I think each one of you has provided valuable and various perspectives that regarding the challenges and opportunities ahead in the privacy and compliance. So let's continue. And on behalf of the audience and the CXO Junction team, as well as QRC team, I thank all the panelists for joining today.